Hey, Ben, thanks for that really nice, wonderful introduction. It's very humbling to hear those words. So thank you. I'm glad to be here tonight to talk about one of our wife and I's favorite country is Costa Rica. I've taught all over the world, but I keep going back to Costa Rica. I'll be there in a few weeks. So what I'm going to cover is a little bit of science, a little bit of culture, and a little bit of photography. And I'm going to start with where is Costa Rica? If we were to go straight south from Tallahassee, just about, we would end up in Costa Rica. It's about 1,440 miles south. So a little bit about Costa Rica. It's small. It's a little smaller than the state of West Virginia. Yet it harbors approximately 5% of the world's biodiversity, which is absolutely astounding. And I'm going to talk about some reasons as to why it's so diverse in a little while. But the population is about 5 million people. About 2% of the population are indigenous groups. There are 8 indigenous peoples throughout Costa Rica. It's a democracy. They take their elections seriously, and they get a really good turnout, upwards of 70% at times. 98% literacy rate for people that are older than 15 years old. Universal medical coverage. In many ways, they're very advanced. No standing army. They have other countries such as the U.S. that will protect them. The huge effort to conserve real estate, conserve habitat. About 28% of the country is protected, either in national parks or in private preserves. They're heavy into renewable energy, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, wind, and right now they're averaging about 300 days per year on 100% renewable. For homes and business and so on, which is pretty incredible. So why is Costa Rica so interesting ecologically? 5% of the world or so in terms of biodiversity in the world, and a country smaller than the state of West Virginia. A tropical climate, plate tectonics, which has resulted in amazing topography and geography. It's geologically very young. And it served, since Costa Rica formed 4 to 5 million or so years ago, it served as a biological corridor between North America and South America. And these exchanges are still happening today. So I'm first going to start by going into some of the geology of Costa Rica, because the geology, the plate tectonic processes serve as a foundation from which everything else happens. This is a picture of Arenal volcano, which has been active for hundreds of years. It's semi-dormant right now. Okay. Prior to the formation of Costa Rica, there was ocean flow between the Pacific and the Atlantic, and South America and North America were isolated from one another. And so you have, for instance, mammal groups. In North America, evolution went toward placental mammals. In South America, it went toward marsupial-type mammals. But when Costa Rica formed, it was like the interstates were open for animals and plants to move north and south. So currently, at the plate tectonic map, Costa Rica is right here, and it's geologically a very, very active country. You can go from sea level to about 14,000 feet, almost 14,000 feet above sea level in a matter of 20, 30 miles. It's incredible. So you have all these convergence zones here, lots of earthquakes, volcanic activity, lots of uplift. And the process of forming Costa Rica didn't just pop up. It was a series of different uplifts and islands forming to join together. So here's some of the mountain ranges. This is the Talamanca Range. And it goes from, this is the Central Valley where the capital of Costa Rica is located. 5 million or so people live in the country, and most of them live in the Central Valley. The Talamanca Mountains are non-volcanic. They've been uplifted from the seafloor, and the tallest peaks in the country in the Talamanca Range. The Central Valley, several of those mountains that you see around the Central Valley are volcanic. The Tiburon Range, those are all volcanic. And the Guanacaste Range, those are all volcanic. And so sedimentary or tectonic uplift that has metamorphic and igneous and sedimentary rocks. You can find fossils of organisms upwards of 10,000 feet above sea level. But there are no active volcanoes in the Talamanca. But from the Central Valley toward the northwest, you have active volcanoes. Now, if Costa Rica was as flat as this piece of paper, you might expect all the environments to be the same from the east coast to the west coast. It averages about 120 miles wide. The narrowest point is about 70 miles wide. But when you have all this tectonic uplift, it changes everything in terms of climate, moisture, etc., which provides niches, different habitats for an amazing array of life. This is, we're looking at the Caribbean, and this was once a coral reef, a fringing reef. Fringing reefs attached near the shore. And this particular reef was below the water level when an earthquake in 1991, a 7.7 magnitude quake, uplifted this reef about a meter up from where it was. And I have this fantasy that if I was teaching one of my classes, if we could have just been snorkeling there at that moment, I would have, as long as no one was hurt or anything, I think I would have enjoyed that. This notch here is where sea level was before the earthquake happened. And that was uplifted, it's uplifted almost instantaneously when the earthquake happened. So I'm pointing this out just as a very active, geologic speaking country. So non-volcanic mountains right there, volcanic mountains in the Central Valley, the Tiburon, and the Guanacaste province. All right, so here, would you say the weather's been pretty interesting here lately? Yeah, I had no idea we'd be experiencing all these tornadoes and all that kind of stuff. But we also, I mean, we have spring, summer, fall, winter, real seasons that changes everything from one time of the year to the next. Costa Rica is about 8 to 10 degrees north of the equator. There are cold fronts that will come down from North America and get to Costa Rica. But that's not a big drive, and that's a significant event when that happens. But that's not the driving thing for Costa Rica. If you think of the globe and the Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degrees north and the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south, the sun, from our perspective, moves north and south in the course of 1 year. All the way north, where it's at local noon, it's directly overhead, Tropic of Cancer, and that's our first day of summer. And our first day of winter, the sun is 47 degrees further south at local noon. That's what controls the weather primarily in Costa Rica, because it's only about 8 to 10 degrees north of the equator. And the intertropical convergence zone, which is where the trade winds from the northern hemisphere meet up with the trade winds from the southern hemisphere. And that kind of moves with the sun. As the sun moves north, the ITCZ moves north with it. And that zone of convergence is where the air at the surface comes in and meets, and then it rises up to form big thunderstorms and lots of rain. You superimpose that with the topography, the dramatic topography, and you can pump out lots of water. Okay. So the ITCZ is what it's all about. And in Costa Rica, The ITCC moves through twice. It moves through north during the northern hemisphere summer, and then in the fall, as the sun moves south of the equator, the intertropical convergence zone moves south. And each time that happens, the atmosphere becomes more unstable, and lots of thunderstorms can happen. So the trade winds are going to blow in across this mountainous region. What happens to air that runs into a mountain? Where does it go? Where does it go? It has to go up. As it goes up, it cools, moisture condenses and drops a lot of water. So this map, these are in meters. All right, and the mountain range extends from the southeast to the northwest. These are the Talamancas, and actually that closed rain bar should say 7 meters of rain on the windward side of the Talamanca. 7 meters, 23 feet. Tallahassee, what's it average? 5 feet? 5 feet or so a year. So think about 23 feet. It's pretty incredible. And even in the driest part of the country is actually up in northwest Costa Rica, where it reminds me a lot of Texas, western Texas. It can be very, very dry. All right, so the mountains will serve as water gets lifted up, the air gets lifted up, the water condenses out. And then when the air moves over the mountains and on the other side, you have a rain shadow effect in certain locations where it gets very, very dry. So this is the Pacific side of that mountain, those combined mountain ranges that run southeast and northwest. And on the Caribbean side, it's cloudy, rain, most of the time. So here's the Pacific slope. The Caribbean slope is totally different. Now this has been deforested, lots of different land use. They're huge issues that Costa Rica faces today is how to use the land, how to protect the land. They've realized that the number one product for bringing in money is tourism. It traditionally relied on pineapples and bananas and coffee and so on and so forth. But tourism is number one. And tourists were mostly coming to see the fabulous wildlife and habitats and so on. So there's a huge effort to protect the lake. But this is on the Pacific side. Now I just need to mention this. There have been glaciers in Costa Rica. In the most recent ice advance here, there were glaciers up in the Talamanca mountain range on peaks that are close to 14,000 feet, 13 to 14,000 feet. So they have climate fluctuations driven by the Earth-Sun clock as well, as we do here as well. Okay, this is just the great faunal exchange. So you had marsupials that moved north, you had placental mammals that moved south, and so before Costa Rica formed 4 or so million years ago, the mammal fauna were separated, and then the highway opened up. Pretty incredible. Like if you go, so these guys represent moving from south to north, giant ground sloths that you've probably seen in the Natural History Museum, where they stand up and they can be 20 feet tall. They moved up from South America. Giant armadillos as big as Volkswagens, that kind of stuff. And of course you had mammoths and mastodons from North America moving all the way into South America when that land bridge came up. Okay. This map, you can't make out all the different numbers here. It's hard to read. But what this is, what biologists, ecologists, we're trying to figure out, why is there so much diversity in Costa Rica? What are the driving forces for it? And so there have been many ways to describe life zone, but the most famous or most well-known is the Holder's life zones. And what he's done what his team has done is looked at, a couple elevation with temperature, dew points, humidities, rainfall. And so, all these different colors represent different life zones in Costa Rica. And it's those different life zones that have allowed organisms to inhabit different parts of the region, not just horizontally, but vertically, on elevation gradients and so on. And so that's one reason why Costa Rica is just so diverse, because of this three-dimensional habitat. Now there's 12 Holdridge life zones in Costa Rica, but there's lots of transitional zones. So a lot of these different colors represent transitions. It's not like it goes from one to another, like stoplight. It's kind of a transition between zones, but hugely important. So as we go through these the different locations of Costa Rica, keep this in mind, because some species are just restricted to those zones. Other species can go beyond those zones. But it all contributes to an incredibly diverse country. It's a biodiversity catalyst. All right, so here are some of the favorite places. The Caribbean coast. This is Panama, here, this line here. The Caribbean coast is, there's a coral reef national park. I said there were 8 indigenous peoples that live scattered through Costa Rica. The 2 main groups are the beaver, which have a reserve in this area in the Talamanca region. The other main group is the Baruca, which are over here. But there's another 6 groups as well. Now the beaver, well, I'll get to them in a second. All right. So the Caribbean coast, beautiful. At sea level, you can get right on up into the mountains very, very quickly. And what we'd like to do is, one course I'm teaching every year is on community-based conservation. And what we mean is that the protection of the environment is not coming from the government above, but it's coming from the community that actually lives there. And the Bribri is one of these indigenous communities that they've been discriminated against. They face all sorts of societal issues, despite Costa Rica being pretty progressive. They still have a long way to go with these indigenous groups. Most of the population is below the poverty line. And so these women in the Bribri community, and the men, they work in the banana plantations and do all this work. And the younger people say, I got to get out of here. And they're leaving the community. And the culture is threatened with extinction, really. And so these women said, what can we do to help keep people here and preserve our culture? And so these women said, well, one thing we can do, we can start, inviting people to come visit our community. We can show them who we are. They'll pay us to come see who we are. And then we'll bring money to our community, which will help people income and help to keep them there. And so we make a point to go here. We go to the village. It's 45 minutes up. These are dugout canoes that they made with an Evan root on the back. And you go up the river, and we stay there for a couple of days. We learn about their culture, from the medicinal plants, their religions, about community-based conservation, the struggle that these women have had, trying to get this to happen. There was a resistance in the community to bring in people like us, but it's still alive and it's thriving. That's some of their homes. This is where we eat. They do the traditional things with making chocolate, and everybody used to do that. We eat their food. We go birding with them. Brewery kids. Yeah, but so community-based conservation, starting from the community on up. So then some of the other habitats on the Caribbean lowlands. So as Ben was saying, I taught innumerable courses, international courses, and one of the thrills is when there's something there, of course, and you've all done this. Oh, look at that, you know. But when everybody gets connected with what we're doing, I live for those kind of moments. Here's a red-eyed tree frog. I'm going to show some wildlife and birds. I'm a snake guy. This is an eyelash viper. Now we're right on the coast. Now we're not in the mountains. We're on the coast. This is a pit viper. They hang out around plants with colorful flowers, and they hope a hummingbird will come along and they nail it, or they might nail a lizard or a frog. Called eyelash viper because of those little horns above the eyes. There's a bioerosive notch from the geologic uplift of the 1991 earthquake. Primates. There's 4 different species. In Costa Rica, this is a mantle howler monkey. These monkeys, they don't have a prehensile tail. And so they got to be really careful walking around up in the canyon. And they're vegetarians. And they have anyone in here heard howler monkeys? What's it sound like? Woo, 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 woo. Very good. But much louder.
Yeah.
Much louder.
It wakes you up.
Yeah, it'll wake you up.
Yeah.
They start cranking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's the mantle howlers. Sloths. I think this is a 3-toed sloth. It's got a mask and like a raccoon face. These guys supposedly, this along the Caribbean coast, Cajita National Park, and they supposedly I've seen this. They come down once a week to defecate.
Oh my goodness.
And then they go back up in the trees. And this one I saw doing this, it had all these moths on its fur. And if you get, not this guy, but this other, but it was gray, but it kind of had a green tint to it from all the algae growing on the fur. And these moths, their life cycles associated with the sloth, which was really cool to see. This is a guarded trogon. How many birds are silly? This is a tennisaur, similar to an iguana, but a different kind of branch. This is a great-tailed grackle. Donna took this photo. I think it's a really neat photo. There's a fringing reef upcliff. Remember that this was a living reef that was underwater when the earthquake happened. We're exploring intertidal zones. Yeah, we haven't even touched on the diversity in the ocean. That's one thing I've noticed is that in the Pacific, on the Pacific side, there's so many big fish because the fishermen haven't been hitting them hard, and there's so many big fish. It's unbelievable. You're scuba diving on a reef or snorkeling on a reef, and you see big tuna fish and all that stuff. The Caribbean side's different because it's so many people depend on it for food. Red-eye tree frog. We go on night hikes a lot. How many people been on night hikes with you? Do you like them? Yeah, they're unbelievable because it's just you and a light, and that's your world, and you have to focus on things. And so we'd like to catch snakes. I can't really make out what kind of snake that is. It might be a cat-eyed snake. This is a poison dart frog. Dendrobates is the genus, and it's about this big. Yeah. But if you look real closely, you see anything?
Yeah.
What's that? Do you see anything special about this?
Yeah, there's something on it.
There's something on it. It's a tadpole on its back.
Oh.
And so, you know, in these tropical ecosystems, it's warm. You know, you don't have to worry about getting below freezing. You can evolve unique life cycles. So the male and female, they make, let's say 5 tadpoles, and they carry them on their backs and bring them to bromeliad plants that are up in trees 100 feet up in the air. And they live in, they stay in the pool of water, where there's all these invertebrates, mosquito larvae, all that kind of stuff. And then when they run out of food, the parents grab them and move elsewhere. So cool. So
Yeah.
cool. This is a strawberry poison dart frog, the same size. And they have toxins in their skin. And they're colorful, right? So the theory is that they're colorful. They want the world to know they're bad. Don't eat me, you'll get sick, you might die. So they're out in the open and stuff. Okay, the great green macaw. This bird was practically extirpated from Costa Rica. But the people naturalists got all upset about this, and so there's been an effort to bring them back. And so the Bribri, that group, the indigenous group I was just telling you about, they have a Ira Manzanillo, where they raise these great green macaws, and then they release them back into the water. And actually, I'm seeing them now. Like you go along the Caribbean coast, they like to eat beach almonds. These are all along the coast, and you see these guys now. Whereas, so I've been teaching there for 40 years, and for the first 25 years or so, we never saw them. But now they're coming back. There's a nice picture of one. So they raise them, and then they let them go. This is a rufous-tailed hummingbird. Costa Rica has over 50 different species of hummingbirds. I spent my career teaching at Miami University in Ohio, and typically we have one species of hummingbird that visits the ruby-throated hummingbird. This is a scarlet rump cacique. This is all Caribbean slope stuff. This is Passerini's tanager. Okay, another thing, like, roads can be barriers to animals, right? Like turtles getting squished, all that kind of stuff. Well, mountains are too. And on the Caribbean lowlands where the Talamanca Mountains are, with 13,000, 14,000 feet above sea level, that's a barrier. So these birds that live in the lowlands, the Passerini's tanager, they're on both sides of the mountain range, Pacific and Caribbean. But the females on the Pacific side look totally different from the females on the Caribbean side. And so they were the scarlet rump tanager. Now then they became the Passerini tanager. What's the other one? The cherry tanager. And I'm not sure what the current status is.
I think they've decided that they are a single species. They split them for a while, and
Yeah.
then somebody's recently done DNA and said. oh,
No,
it's
there's,
actually-
yeah, because the males look the same. This is a green kingfisher. This is on north of Le Mans on the Caribbean coast. But I love, and this is a female. This is a white collar mannequin. Anybody have ever heard the mannequins with they do this rattle? Yeah. With their wings, and they're known to also do this lecking where guys get on a branch and they see who can out leck the other one. A group-billed Annie. These guys are cool. They're very social. There might be 10 of them together, and there'll be a looker. And he or she is looking, and if that lookout gets uncomfortable with your presence, they communicate to the other ones and they leave. This is a golden hooded tanager. Again, we're at the lower elevations. Steel-billed toucan. Fabulous birds. Snowy Katinga. Red Lord parrots. This is along the Caribbean coast, and they're supposed to pair up for a long time. Okay, so now we're gonna move from the Caribbean coast to Arenal volcano. This is a classic looking volcano. This is a picture taken from a town called La Fortuna. And it's been dormant for hundreds of years. In 1968, it erupted. And it killed upwards of 70 or so people that were, the eruption was bad on the other side, so to speak. Up through 2010, we could take, I took those pictures. It was fabulous. It was puff and puff. It's the Earth's respiratory system at work. And it was just unbelievable. Now, it's still, geologically, it's still an active volcano, just not doing this. It sends up steam, has minor earthquakes, but it's not erupting with, we've seen, out of this peak, we've seen boulders as big as cars being shot out, and then they're white, they're red hot, white hot rock, and then they roll down the slope and explode into all these little pieces. It's a real natural fireworks. Okay, so land use. So when we go from the Caribbean up to Arenal, we drive across the landscape. And one of the most stunning things, okay, where do all the bananas come from? They go to the port of Le Mans on the Caribbean coast, and then they're shipped all over the world. But this is what the land looks like, mostly. It's the intensive land use in agriculture. And when I first saw this, I was kind of shocked. That's just the way it is. But remember, 28% of the landscape is protected. For tourism, bananas, coffee, pineapples, oil palm, cattle, sugar. Then they're still a big deal in Costa Rica in terms of the economy. But a sea of bananas, these large plantations, this is a complicated, complex problem. Because the big banana companies employ people, they give people a place to live, they give people schools, they give them medical care. And so you get hooked into this. They have a company store. It sounds just like West Virginia and the coal mines. And it's a kind of it's tough. It's tough. Another bad thing, see those bananas? There were forests there, lowland rainforests, and they're gone. And so when I buy bananas, and I still eat bananas occasionally, to get those bananas, the amount of herbicides and insecticides that they put on these things, it's unbelievable. They'll spray every day on these plants. But at least these plants, there are environmentally friendly plantations as well. But anyway, you recognize some of these brands. And then the roadside stands, driving along the road, you can get just about any kind of delicious fruit. Yeah. Banana workers, they work really hard. It's hot. I think it's hot in Tallahassee in August. Well, it is hot. I'm not just saying it's not. But these guys, they work really hard. But at this time when I took this picture, you know what they make a day? The U.S. money was about $10. It's probably changed. That was 30 years ago. Okay. But all this land use, it comes at a cost because it does have an impact on biodiversity. There's no question about it. Okay. Arenal, there's a national park that you can actually hike all the way up onto land that was once not there. And this is, since 68. A snake, the same snake, two different pictures. Female honey creeper, green honey creeper, I believe.
So you're saying it's restoration, they restored it?
Just nature restored. Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
The vol-
No, it wasn't any water.
Volcano.
The volcano puts out all this material, and then, birds start dropping seeds, and it starts recovering. And then you can actually walk on up to an old lava flow. Yeah. And if you're going to Costa Rica, I highly recommend that you visit all these places. This, I'm kind of like, I'm always pointing out people, stay on the trails. Don't go off the trails. If you do go off the trails, talk to us first, because there are a lot of venomous snakes in Costa Rica. And this is called, it's a scary name, a jumping viper. And his students, they came running down from the lava fields, and they're running down the trail. Do you remember that, Tom? And they just missed stepping on this guy. The eyelash viper. This is a spotted antbird. It's really cool. Sometimes, as you're walking on a trail, this is by Arenal volcano, the army ants are marching through, and they're popping up. All these insects are saying, "I gotta get out of here." And then there's like a mixed flock of antbirds that are picking off the insects. Fort Arenal, new land, created 1892. All right, so now we're going to go. So we've been on the Caribbean coast, Arenal. Now we're going to go into the cloud forest. This is Monteverde Cloud Forest Biological Reserve. It was founded, actually, the Quakers settled in that region in the 50s. And they didn't, they're anti-war, and they didn't want to go fight in a war. And so they took their resources and they moved to Costa Rica, and they settled in this part of Costa Rica. And they cut down lots of forests to do the kind of agriculture they like to do. They got to the point where the tops of the mountains, that's where their water's coming from. And some people had the foresight to preserve those forests, like the caps of the mountains. Do not cut the forest there, because they'll ruin their own water supply. And that's been donated, and that's become Monteverde Cloud Forest Reserve. And there's a bunch of different efforts, the Children's Rainforest and others, where there's 50,000 or so hectares that are preserved. But you don't have to go far to see on the Pacific slope, particularly deforestation all the way to the Pacific. It is a biological oasis. This is looking toward the Caribbean side, which is more intact. We once hiked all the way down here, 10 miles down. And it looks all green, but it's disturbed. Like most landscapes today, they are disturbed in some form or another. Old farms, all that kind of stuff, but it's doing pretty well. Now this, Monteverde is like a canary in a coal mine in terms of climate change and temperatures. The LCL, anyone know what that is? LCL, weather-wise? It's called the condensation lifting low. Lifting condensation low. And it's when the air is lifted up, it's where the temperature and the dew point meet. And when they meet, you form a cloud. And for thousands of years, the LCL has been low enough to catalyze the development of a cloud forest. But what researchers have been lately finding out is that the lifting condensation level is more frequently forming higher than the mountain. The mountains were at about 4,500 feet above sea level. So, at Monteverde Cloud Forest. But that's kind of what the canopies look like. Strangler figs are a very important tropical, neotropical plant. What they do is, a bird will drop a seed, form a vine that goes all the way to the ground, and then over time, it could be hundreds of years, will wrap around its host. The host, it's not taking nutrients from the host, it's just taking space. And eventually it constricts the host where the host dies, and oftentimes you can walk inside. This may not be a good example, but you can walk inside where the host tree was. The these strangle figs are keystone species because they make figs by the thousands of figs, and everybody and their brother eats figs. Birds, mammals, they come from all over. There's also highly evolved, co-evolved relationships between figs and their fig blossoms that are necessary for the pollination of the figs. When you eat a fig Newton, look on the label, it says insect parts, it's because yeah, they're definitely dead wasps inside of that fig.
That's what the crunch is.
That's what the crunch is.
Yeah.
At Monteverde Cloud Forest Preserve, they regulate how many people come in. And they'll stop that, close the gate, and they wait till the people come out. It's very well organized. They want everybody to have an experience that you'll never forget. My recommendation to you is if you go, get a guide. They know so much, they communicate with each other. If you found a snake somewhere, you're gonna tell me where it is and all that kind of stuff. Now, in theory, like what people have in the literature, when there's so many epiphytes, the cloud forest, it's moist, half the rain falling, half the moisture is from the clouds and not raindrops from a thunderstorm. And so that promotes the growth of epiphytes on all over some of these trees. And some say that if you were to weigh all the epiphytes and the water that's in them, and compare it to the mass of the trees, oftentimes the epiphytes have more mass than the host tree. Tree ferns, prehistoric trees from the Paleozoic. They go back that far. Fungi everywhere. And aside, lots of insects. A lot of this diversity was insects, right? Now, in the old days, when we went to the preserve, there'd be a white sheet with a black light on it at night. And you'd come out to look and see what arrived, and the sheet would be, every square inch would be covered with something. They took the sheet down because it doesn't happen. Yeah, they just don't put the black light up because there's not as many insects in it. I mean, it's very diverse, so on and so forth, but the insects populations are less. This is a golden brown chlorophone. I took this picture from that bridge, the canopy bridge. This is an azure jay. I rarely see these, but I was thrilled to see it. And then here's some other, the black wand, green crown brilliant, American red star. If you want to see hummingbirds, Monteverde is. They have 50 plus species or so in the country, and I don't know how many are actually Monteverde, but I see more hummingbirds there. Oh, okay. This is the three-wattled bellbird. Another important thing, the three-wattled bellbird and another bird I'm going to show you in a second, is resplendent quetzal. They're altitudinal migrators. So they live most of the year down in the low lowlands, but they come up to the cloud forest to reproduce. And so you not only have to protect what's up in the cloud forest, there's efforts to build these biological corridors that go all the way down to the coast. And it's a slow process, but they are making that effort to do that, to protect these kind of birds. That's the male three-wattled bellbird. And they make one of the loudest bird calls on the planet. You can hear it from very far away. And it's that I've seen pictures where the female would be right next to this male, and the female's doing like that. But they really are wild. That's a three-wattled bellbird. This is a violet saber. This is their largest one, the big number. The resplendent quetzal. People come from all over the world to see these birds. This is a male resplendent quetzal, and that's the female. Now they've had some problems. Real quick, there's a false vampire bat that has discovered that the preserve, they put out quetzal nesting boxes to help promote reproduction. Well, the false vampire has figured out that heck, there's a little baby quetzal on there. And the false, they put cameras up so that they have this story to tell. And when the baby when the bat decides it's time to get the quetzal, bat goes in and grabs the quetzal and eats it. And so there's a big controversy right now, what to do. The vampire bat is native, it's just doing what they do. They're big bats and they're predators. But the quetzal is the poster child. So we'll see what happens. This is a barred hawk. This was down a little bit, just a couple hundred meters below where Monteverde Preserve is. Spangled cheek tanager. This was in one of the canopy bridges. Slaty-back nightingale thrush. Now this was something. This is an ornate hawk eagle, and this was below Monteverde, a couple hundred meters, and it had a nest, and it had a baby. There were two of them, and we were so thrilled to see this. This is Lessons Mont. American Red Star. Okay, see anything interesting there? When I first saw it, I think, did you take this picture, Ben? Yeah. I first saw this, what is this? Well, this is a walking stick. It's almost a foot long. Yeah. Whoa. This long.
Wow.
Night hikes. You never know what you're gonna get. It's always interesting. A lot of little things, a lot of insects come out. There's predatory crickets go around trying to eat other insects. Lots of walking sticks, frogs, moths. Now, I told you the black light thing. That's true, but there's still a lot of insects. It's still lots to see. Bats. In Florida, how many species of bats are? Yeah, I'm gonna say 12, but I'm not absolutely certain. Costa Rica, 109. You got fish-eating bats, you got fruit-eating bats, nectar-eating bats, you got vampire bats.
Fishing bats.
Fish-eating bats, yeah, thank you. What's that?
A false vampire.
False vampire. The greatest mammal diversity in Costa Rica, it is bats. They're about half of all the other mammals. This is Dr. Laval, who's a bat biologist. He lives there, he's retired and lives in Monteverde. And he came to talk to our class. And just he was misnutting, it was raining, it was drizzling, remember? And they caught 7 different bats and everybody got to look at them. We're at the Continental Divide. This behind us is the Pacific, and if you go over that hill there, it's the forest has been mostly cut. And this is looking toward the Caribbean, which is more protected. So Costa Rica, now we're going to the Corcovado region. We're doing a loop and coming down to the extreme southern coast on the Pacific side. They're placed off the Osa Peninsula and Corcovado National Park. For me, Donna's favorite place, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Monteverde. I love Monteverde, but my favorite place is Corcovado National Park. It's very wild. It's about 50 to 60,000 hectares. It's isolated. It's got a lot going for it. It's got oceans on oceanography. It's got oceans. It's got great geology. It's got mountains. It's got everything. I just like it all. The arrows show different places to go. On the way, we take a boat from the town of Sierpe on the upper right and go down the Sierpe River and go through this mangrove estuary. It's 10,000 hectares of mangroves that are preserved. And mangroves, you know, the ones I've seen in Florida, I've seen some that are fairly tall, but most of them aren't that tall. The ones here, 50 feet, 60 feet tall. It's absolutely incredible. And you know how important mangroves are for nursery grounds and so on, carbon sequestration.
Are these the same like black mangrove?
Oh, thank you. Well, they are black mangroves and they are red mangroves, but then there's 2 other species too.
Right.
And there's one There's one that's, this one's endemic. This is the genus is Pellicera, and it makes these neat little buttresses and so on. The tidal range here, like new moon and full moon, can be as much as 9 to 10 feet. Yeah, so it's been incredible how it can change into the 2 highs and 2 lows a day. It's kind of cool to see. I've caught a boa constrictor in this forest. Up just talking to the class and I look up and there's some like right above our heads. A boa constrictor, and non-venomous. The also really cool for geology people. Remember that Costa Rica was uplifted from the sea floor. And this is in Corcovado, which is part connected to the Talamanca mountain range. And this is right on the shore. And this is a former sea floor near a spreading center. And this is all these igneous rocks that were formed, millions of years ago. And then moved away from the spreading center and got uplifted to form this shoreline. A lot of boat time, a lot of great features. Everything was beach landings, in this part of Costa Rica. Bare-throated tiger herons, scarlet macaws. When we first started going to Costa Rica, and we went to Corcovado National Park there, we never saw scarlet macaws. They just weren't around. But there was an effort to stop the poaching, stop people from exporting them, putting nest boxes up and protecting them. And now there's so many, I still, when I see it, I get all scarlet macaw. But when we tell that to the students, they go, because they're everywhere. It's eating a peach almond. Now, king vultures. We see them on both coasts, both the Caribbean coast and the Pacific coast. It's always a thrill to see these guys. This is a pale-billed woodpecker. And inside of that hole, it's got some little chicks. This is a crested owl. This is all a Corcovado National Park. This is another poison dart frog that's on the Pacific coast, not the Caribbean. Lots of crocodiles. There's a river up in the Guanacaste province, up in northwestern Costa Rica, the dry area. We've seen crocodiles at least 15 feet long, maybe, could you go as long as 18 feet?
Maybe.
Yeah, like these huge animals, unbelievable. I think that's a helmeted iguana. Okay, this is a Beard's taker, the butt of the Beard's taker, and its head's up at the top, and it's wallowing in a mud bath. And sitting on it is a bacillus lizard, the Jesus Christ lizard. Now takers, we used to not see them either, but now we do see them. We see them all the time. Whenever you go to one of the field stations there, you'll see these guys. They're big. They're the largest mammal, native mammal in Costa Rica, and they're related to horses and rhinoceroses. Which is, and it all has to do with lots of things with their feet, their hooves are similar. On night hikes, came across this spider. It's not that big, fortunately. It's small, but it has a unique strategy of catching things. It hangs upside down and it's got its web and it's at the ends of its legs. And if a prey item walks by, it kind of throws the web on the prey as it jumps on.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so cool. Here's some eggs from that species of frog that you saw mating. This is a fertile lance. It's a pit viper. This one was about 2 meters long. We had Don and I were at the back of our class line. We had a guide, 2 guides in the front. And we were at the back, and everybody, including the guides, walked right past this snake. It was at you know, the trees with buttresses, it had a buttress at its back. And Donna said, I bet that looks like a good place for a snake, and we got close. We found it had been raining, but you know what? They bite a lot of people, but usually because you find them in landscapes where people are doing agriculture and they like to eat rodents. So that happens, but we've never had any issues with these guys. Beautiful specimen. This is a vine snake, a brown vine snake. It had to be 6 feet long. And it was in this tree. And it was funny, the wind's blowing and, you know, the branches are doing this. You know what it was doing? It does the same thing, yeah, the exact same thing. They have rear fangs, they're mildly venomous. Not a problem. Not sure what they're looking at there. It might have been an amazing wonder. Well, again, when you can see people connect, like, it's just a good thing. Squirrel monkeys are in the Corcovado region, also Manuel Antonio up on the Pacific coast. They're teeny little guys. They fight a lot. You often see them, their ears are all ripped up. This is a black-hooded ant strike. This is a spider monkey. Now this guy has a prehensile tail. So it's like they're the acrobats of the neotropical forest in Central and South America. They swing through the air. They've got that fifth leg, so to speak, and they're incredible to watch. They take your breath away. Their athleticism. It's not a good picture, but it's a baby spider monkey 100 feet up in the canopy. That's a white-faced capuchin. I'll tell you a real quick story. Okay. We were in the field all day, got back to where we were staying, and all the students were looking at these white-faced capuchins that were on top of the places where we were staying. And this one capuchin, he's looking at students, looking over. I said, I'm gonna do it. And he ran down and grabbed an iguana. It's about this. And he brought it on up, and all his buddies came over and they're all excited. And the monkey that had the iguana looked at it and went,
Oh,
took his head off, and ate it. Then he took the rest of his meat. But the students, they're all excited, and then when it gets the head off. Oh! It was really fun. Old growth forests and trees, hundreds of years old. Now, not even Corcovado, not all the forests are old growth. Some of them are secondary growth. But before it became a national park, they harvested for lumber. Mahogany trees. And they still have to keep people, because the rocks were at a spreading center on the seafloor, there's gold in their rocks. And people, they sneak into the park to try to get that gold. Night hikes again. They look pretty happy, don't they? Cat-eyed snake. This is Donna's favorite frog, the glass frog. Yeah, you can shine a light and you can see the heart beating, all that kind of stuff. Now, my feelings were hurt because we divided the class into two different groups. We had the group small and three different groups. And the two professors didn't see it. But Kristen did and got in one of the best photos ever of an ocelot. And of course, there's other ecosystems, marine ecosystems, but we do other courses that focus on marine things. Not so much this one. And so, if you ever go to Costa Rica, in San Jose, there's a National Museum. And it's a dynamite place. You learn so much about the history of colonization, about the history of indigenous peoples there. These are stone spheres. Remember the banana plantation? I showed you with the sea of bananas. In the middle of that plantation are these archaeological sites that now are part of their, been kind of cut out from the banana plantation. And they're a World Heritage Site. It's a World Heritage Site now. And this indigenous group, they took rocks from that mountain range 25 kilometers away, brought it to where they live, and they made these giant spheres. And they're the best ones they're not perfectly round, but they're a lot better than most of us could ever do. Far better equipment. Well, you'll learn all about that if you go to the museum. And so Costa Rica's waiting for you. That's it. If you ever have any questions about it, I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much.
And what I showed you is just a, like a sliver